to about three live channels that went live today. And the thing that stands out most importantly to me is the concept of a classroom. When you speak of a classroom, that classroom does not belong to the educator. That classroom belongs to the students that walk into that room. It is their learning environment, and it should be adapted to each and every individual student based upon their midline or their medium ability to learn. You start from where the child is. No one should ever suppress the abilities of students to share in their own learning. The only way for anyone to acquire knowledge, skills, or techniques associated with learning is based upon the mutual fact that they own their own learning. They acquire the skills because it belongs to them. No one, no educator, no administrator, no office personnel, cafeteria person, janitor, no one should ever tell a student to shut up unless if it is in a crisis. For instance, like there's a gun shooting going on or, an emergency. It should be the norm that all children have ownership of their classroom. Because if there is shared ownership of that classroom with the parents and with the students, then they will be motivated to learn, acquire skills that are socially acceptable, moral conduct that they feel comfortable with. Sometimes you hear a lot of BS about people. People send you texts, they send you DMs, they send you videos, they write you about concerns of individuals. And often it's very hard to hold back all that information and keep it to yourself until you get proof from their own mouths. And when you have an example that is stated today by someone, or last night, whenever it was made, I heard it on another channel, that students should be quiet and shouldn't share their emotional feelings in a classroom, that is wrong, because that is allowing students to maintain their emotional negativity in their body, in their mind. And how do you teach or allow a student to have positive examples, positive and appropriate behaviors, if you will not allow students to participate in their own learning? The ownership of acquiring knowledge is set by the examples of the adults that are participating. In addition to that, let's talk about that classroom for a minute. Any classroom, okay? Classrooms belong to parents. Classrooms do not belong to the educator. If you are unwilling to open up that door and acquire new skills and knowledge from parents and students, then you're not a good educator. If you are unwilling to make home visits and learn from that family about their children, you are not a good educator. And you are not an expert about that particular subject. You must be willing, as an educator, when you get your license and you maintain them for years and years, you must be willing to share. And those parents and you and that child or your student as a flowing faucet of knowledge. Those students are not your subjects to tell them to shut up and sit down. It is a shared environment where all parents participate and you have a continual loop of learning. And if you think that if you have a master's or a doctorate that you know more than parents, you're badly mistaken. Because you can have all the book knowledge in the world. You can hold a doctorate, you can hold a master's, you could be an administrator, and you can state in your lives on various occasions, well, it didn't pay enough. Well, when you get into education, it's not about the money. It's about doing public service for those who you want to help. You must have the desire to help others. But at the same token, you cannot look at yourself and say, well, Texanna Fernandez, she has the EDS. Or she has beyond a master's and I know more than the parents. That's not the way I view it. Every classroom I've ever held, the children, the students and the parents own that classroom. Because I'm walking into a classroom where I may not know the students. And who's going to give me that information? Who is going to help me set that baseline of what that student needs besides an IEP? And that's just testing. That's a reflection upon the testing accommodations or the reflection of the true skills, the raw skills. But who lives with that child 24/7? I'm new to this scenario. The parents, the student. And when you're teaching in a high school situation, you really have to open that classroom for students, because the students in a high school situation, they own their own material. They own their own abilities to think, acquire knowledge, to share and participate in their own learning. No educator, no administrator should ever tell any student, whether they're even start, which is, it's basically for 2 to 3 year olds, all the way up to college. It's a little bit different with college, but from even start up to high school, 12th grade, all parents, all children should participate in the learning, because the classroom belongs to them. When you walk into a classroom brand new for 1 year, I'm not talking about looping classrooms where you stay with a student for 2 to 4 years. I'm talking about every year you have a new classroom, a new set of students. It is not your classroom. It is not the educator's classroom, because you're walking in with brand new students. And if you can't allow students to have ownership of their learning, and you must be willing to learn from the parents and not play the political game, you are already setting that student up for failure. That's wrong. And I'll tell you something else. Life acquired skills that promote common sense. For instance, when I was teaching in the high school setting, my students, we did what was referred to back then as transitional community activities, or they used to call them activities within the community. Those kids, they're young adults, they would go on community outings. They learned to ride a bus, because a lot of times families don't have time to teach them how to read a schedule or go to a community. Did I direct them on where to spend their money or how to get on the bus? No. The preparation for outdoor activities was to make sure before you begin that activity, is to allow the students to become familiar with the brochures, where the bus stop is from the school. And if you're going to do it with a home visit of 3 to 4 kids that live within the same area, then what you do, and this was permitted for me, I asked for this from my administration, and they gave this to me. So my paraprofessionals, we would split all, I had four. We would split the classroom, and each one of us would take 3 to 4 children, minors, and we all had the same baseline of lesson plans. And the district had a guideline of what we could and could not do within the community. But I thought it was necessary for those students to understand what was available to them within their community. And public transportation is very important, but they have to be taught how to use that, okay? That's a new skill if the parents have not already accomplished that. So I took it. I took that transitional component. I wrote it into the high school students' IEP as a requirement. I talked to the parents about it, whether they thought that was a good idea or not. And they did. And the preparation for those students to be within their own community and to gain resources. They used the public transportation after they were taught to go to the library, they rode the transportation to find out where the police station was, the fire department, but they acquired the skills. Did it take time for them to understand the brochure? Did it take them time to learn the whole transportation thing? Yes, it did. And the most important thing was they learned how to maneuver within their own community. So we would go to the area of where they lived, their neighborhoods, and we would do a baseline from the neighborhoods from the bus, from the public transportation to whatever area that we were concentrating on that day. So I am a big believer in community awareness for students, and what it does, it prepares them for adulthood. If we do not, as educators, or even as administrators, if we do not set children or young people up for success, and they take that ownership, then we have taught them nothing. We have wasted their time. So, another consideration when you're looking at a classroom and a family unit and students, if you have educators who are participating in negative consequences of telling a young person, this is not your room, this is not your place, then how are they going to feel welcomed in that classroom? Why would they even want to learn? Because you're setting, as an educator, as an adult, you're setting that student up for failure as soon as they walk through the door. And to me, that's inappropriate and irresponsible. You should never do that to anyone. If you are a house parent and you're running a group home, even if you work in a setting such as that, you should be open to shared responsibility in learning. For instance, let's say that you have someone that has lived within a home, a residence, with his or her family members, and they are going to a group setting. As a group leader or a group parent, you must have the understanding that the expectation and standards of living within that group home, let's say it has 5 bedrooms and it houses 2 people per room, but the first bedroom is the house parents, and that would be rotated because it's a 24-hour-a-day job. Usually the rotation is 4 days on, 4 days off, or you do 36 hours with 2 days off. So when you're looking at, that's for staff. I'm not talking about the residents. That's staff. So when you're looking at that and you have 4 bedrooms left, you're looking at two single beds per room, so there's 8 residents plus staff. And if you're lucky enough, there will be a staff accommodations outside of the main residence where it would be another house or a residential hall where they would probably have 10 to 12 staff members. In Cumberland, Maryland, they have a residential center there, and they have a residential, um, it's like a little tiny motel, and they usually have 12 to 16 staff members at all times in case that if there's an emergency, like a fire or something, they want to make sure that everyone is able to get out. But anyway, going back to this residential setting, group home thing, when an individual comes there, it's very difficult for these individuals coming from a residence where they're cared for by their parents or their siblings to come into a residential setting, because they have to learn to apply the principles and standards and rules of that new residence. And often there are rebound behaviors where they're not going to accept the new transition, the new program. And the best thing that you can do as the administrator of one of those type of situations, those residential centers or halls, whatever you may refer to them as, is to make sure there's patience. And when you're looking for staff for that type of situation, you're not just looking at credentials, because, like I said, anyone can get a degree. But to have compassion and respect and the accountability to look at any person with a disability or with a non-disability and say, you need time to adjust, we understand. And you have to be able to look at that, this is common sense. You have to be able to look at the person individually and say, this is where we can help. This is where they may need a little bit of more attention or a little bit more patience, or maybe I need to change my tone, okay? And at the same token, when you're talking about this, it's their home. It's their new resident. You're just either a house parent, or you're just a administrator who runs the services, but you have to have compassion for everyone. And you have to be willing to understand that is their permanent home, okay? That's their permanent home. You can come and go. You're just a staff member. And when you are a family member, bringing your family member into you're releasing them to a group facility to live. That is their new home. It doesn't matter. The staff does not have to appease to your ever becking call. That's not what it's about. Their responsibility is to your family member. The responsibility for safety, respect, concern, adaptation, to take them to doctor's appointments, allow them to have outings and experience therapy farms, going to a grocery store, going out to eat, having the patience to allow them to go pick out their own clothes. You give them that choice, then you accept their response. You don't look at them after you have given them the choice and say, oh no, you can't do that. That's wrong. They're not learning any skills that way. They're not having ownership. So the baseline is this. No matter whether you work in a residential center, no matter whether you work in a psychiatric center or for long care mental health issues, whether you work in a center for on-site educational centers at psychiatric hospitals, whether you're within a home, public or private or charter school, the bottom line is, when the parents and the person that you are going to accommodate walks through the door, that is their ownership. You are just a visitor. You're just visiting. Some people, they get lucky. They loop with the kids as they grow. Some people get lucky. Other people's don't. And when you have been with the family for 4 years in a looping situation, I was one of those lucky people. Then yes, you get very tight with parents. Yes, you do. But you have the solid foundation. There is mutual consideration and respect for that student, the parent, and yourself. You do not walk into any type of facility, any type, public, private, anything, and think that it's your ownership, no matter what your position is, no matter even if you're an administrator. That could be a superintendent, that can be an assistant superintendent, a principal, a social worker, OTPT, LSP, it doesn't matter. That facility belongs to those that are coming in to acquire knowledge and skills to adapt to their life. And if you're unwilling to share that with the people that are walking through the door, you might as well just be quiet and walk away, because you're doing a disservice to yourself and everyone else. That's the only words I have to say tonight. And we all should be just understanding that it's shared. And if you think that book knowledge is everything, you're badly mistaken. You must have common sense also. I see you all in there. You all have a good night. I saw what you said. Hey, sir, can I have a mod? Or do you mean a moment or a mod?
You didn't send it out, did you?
Thank you very much. You guys have a good night. Please consider not all things are shared publicly, because it would create more chaos, and we don't really need any more chaos. There's enough chaos. But consider being kind to the students or children or whoever may be in your life, because respect and appropriate examples need to be shown in the protection of all these young people on YouTube. It really needs to be emphasized. So I want that one person to understand this. Many people have contacted me about you, and I'm just going to be straight up with you. I'm not going to share everything or anything that they told me. I've waited. I've watched you. You need to chill out a little bit, okay? You're not above anyone. It doesn't matter how much education you have. It doesn't matter who you think you are, because you never know who's watching. But I will guarantee you this. To run down other people and to state that you told students to shut up, I honestly believe what people have been telling me, what they have sent me in DMs and videos, and that's such a shame. You all be safe, okay? Bye-bye.
You didn't put it out, did you?